This is the Granite, which is Mokwheel's take on an electric tricycle. This trike combines some of the best design features we've seen from similar models, along with a cool look and a fairly peppy feel. So how does it stack up against other trikes we've tested? Let's take a ride and find out. Welcome to Electric Bike Report and sometimes Electric Trike Report. My name's John and I'll be your host for this review. If you're new here, we're known for our standardized performance tests that we do with every e-bike and trike we get our hands on. We make high quality content with objective data that you can use to inform your buying decision. So if that sounds like what you're looking for, please be sure to subscribe to the channel so you can find your way back. And please also do us a favor if we're able to guide you toward a model you want to purchase. Each of our reviews has an affiliate link down in the video description you can use if you're ready to buy, and doing so helps support our channel without increasing the price you pay. With all that covered, let's get into the Granite and talk about a few highlights from our testing. The first thing I want to point out is one of those really essential design elements that I mentioned in the intro. The Granite is powered by a 500-watt hub motor that's not actually used as a hub motor. Instead, it's mounted centrally between the rear wheels, and it's connected to a differential axle that does a couple of really cool things. First, it allows both wheels to be powered by the motor, giving the trike great traction. And second, it allows the rear wheels to turn at different speeds, which makes cornering possible and safe. And third, this setup makes the Granite feel a bit more natural to pedal than many other trikes that use front hub motors without adding the high cost of a mid-drive motor. Next, the Granite comes with a high-capacity 720 watt-hour battery that is removable and fully integrated into the down tube. At the time of filming, this is actually the largest battery we've seen in a trike, and this amount of capacity gave the Granite fantastic results in our range test, which we'll talk more about in detail later in the review. Finally, I was impressed with how many of the trike's settings and features are customizable through the Display settings menu. You can choose between 3 or 5 pedal assist settings. You can select between a safe and free mode for the throttle, which determines whether it will pick up from a complete stop or whether you'll need to be moving first. And we'll talk a bit more about this later, but you can also change the intensity of the trike's acceleration, so it can be more gradual to pick up speed or very quick to get moving. Beginning with our brake test, my fellow reviewer Griffin pedaled the Granite up to speed, hit the brakes at a marked line, and measured how far the trike traveled before coming to a complete stop. We did 3 of these tests to calculate an average, which turned out to be 13 feet and 2 inches. Now, I do want to point out that the Granite's top speed of 20 miles per hour is significantly faster than that of most other trikes we've tested. The others have maxed out between 14 and 16 miles per hour. We used the Granite's third level of pedal assist, which tops out at 16 miles per hour, so we could maintain consistency, but do keep in mind that the stopping distance will be extended if you're traveling faster. Another thing to mention is that the comparison isn't super straightforward here. The pool of other trikes we've tested is relatively small, and about half of them used mechanical disc brakes instead of hydraulics, which really doesn't make comparison fair. One of the top-selling e-bikes on the market now is the XP trike from Electric e-bikes, and the Granite tied that trike in this test, so on that alone, we'd be happy to give the Mokwheel 2 thumbs up. But there's a little more to dive into. So first, the Granite uses smaller 160mm rotors versus the XP's 180mm rotors, but it has 3 rotors, while the XP only has 2. In fact, most of the trikes we've tested only had 2. Mokwheel included a line splitter, so both rear calipers could be controlled by the same lever, which is a little different from the norm, but it proved to be very effective. In my opinion, these brakes felt great. Stopping felt very quick and controlled without feeling too aggressive. My initial rating stands, so we give the Granite a very well-earned 2 thumbs up. I performed our speed test with the Mokwheel Granite out on our local network of shared use paths. I pedaled this trike with no pedal assist and then stepped up through each of its 5 pedal assist settings while noting my average speed. I also tested its throttle to see how quickly it could reach 20 miles per hour. So let's go see how the test went, and we can talk about my findings back here in the studio. All right, so we are here for a speed test on the Mokwheel Granite, and I am starting things off with no pedal assist. pedaling pretty casually here, going around 7 miles per hour, maybe a little faster or slower at times, but just kind of trying to see what the preset speed limits are. Let's go ahead and go up to PAS 1. So it is worth noting that the throttle shares the same speed limits as the pedal assist system. So if you do want to rely on throttle, you know, the speeds that we're getting here, you're going to be able to match those. PAS 1 here, the lowest level of pedal assist, got us up to about 8 miles per hour. Yep. And then let's go ahead and go up to PAS 2. I'm going to shift up to 5th gear. I do want to mention I'm kind of perched forward on the saddle. So if I wanted to, you know, lean up against that backrest, I would be pretty far back and really not able to pedal. So just something to keep in mind. But actually I'm going to go all the way up to 7th. So looks like PAS 2's got us up to about 12 miles per hour. Yep. And then let's go up to PAS 3. Oh, kind of taking off here. Let's see, we are up to around 16 miles per hour. So kind of starting to ghost pedal here a little bit, which I don't really mind on a trike. Not a big deal, but just something to be aware of. That, you know, I'd have to really pedal fast to stay up, keep up with the trike speed. So yeah, we'll call, slow down a little bit for that curve. All right, there we go. 16 miles per hour was about PAS 3, so let's go up to PAS 4. Man, this thing definitely picks up pretty swiftly. We are up to 20 miles per hour, which is the maximum speed here. Well, actually 19 and a half looks like. Yep. A little faster at times. Let's go up to PAS 5 and finish things off. Yeah, kind of in the same range there, between 19 and a half and 20, just depending on the path, I think. So, okay, we'll go ahead and call that our speed test. Let's go see about the throttle. All right, and we are back for a throttle acceleration test from 0 to the trike's maximum speed, which is 20 miles an hour. Let's go ahead and start in 3, 2, 1, go. All right, nice gradual build, picking up pretty quickly though. 15, 17, 19, and 19.8, 20. There we go. All right. To recap my results from the pedal test, I started off at 7.1 miles per hour with casual pedaling and no extra help from the motor. My speeds went up to 8.1 miles per hour in the lowest level of pedal assist, which is PAS 1, then 12 miles per hour in PAS 2, 15.9 in PAS 3, 19.6 in PAS 4, and 19.8 miles per hour in PAS 5. Now, if we plug those numbers into a graph, we can see the Granite's speed profile, which generally looks really great. We usually hope to see the data points form an angled line, which means that every step up in the pedal assist level gives roughly the same increase in speed, and that tends to feel pretty intuitive. In the Granite's case, we see exactly that in PAS 1 through 4, and then at least when going by the numbers, PAS 5 wasn't really any different than PAS 4, but that's not unusual. I did some other testing on hills, which showed that PAS 4 and 5 do have different power levels. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the hill test section later, but basically the Granite has essentially 4 pedal assist settings for flat ground and a 5th more powerful setting to make it easier when carrying a heavy load or going up a steep hill. When it comes to the throttle, the trike's acceleration picked up pretty quickly. I've been on quite a few trikes at this point, so I was comfortable with that. But if you haven't been on one in a while, or if you're completely new to them, I'd probably recommend going into the bike settings menu and turning down the motor intensity setting to 1 to make it a lot more gradual and controlled. The Granite ships with this setting at 3, but it can go up to 5, where the acceleration gets pretty punchy. Although personally, I found that to be a little bit much. That leads me to a fairly big point of critique that I have for the Granite. I liked that it was easy to control my speed through the pedal assist system with the preset speed limits we identified, but it generally felt a little too fast. For perspective, all of the other trikes we've reviewed had a max speed between 14 and 16 miles per hour, as I said earlier, instead of the Granite's 20 miles per hour. All trikes can feel a bit tippy if you're not taking turns slow enough, but this trike's rear wheel spacing is also narrower than average at roughly 24.5 inches on center versus just under 27 inches on center, so it was a bit more pronounced here. It's possible to reduce the Granite's maximum speed through the display settings menu, but we'd prefer it to be limited to a range similar to the other trikes we've tested. Otherwise though, I think the Granite actually did a really solid job in this test, even if there was a little room for improvement. In our range test, we tested the efficiency of the Granite's 500-watt motor and 720-watt-hour battery by pedaling on our local shared use paths until the trike ran out of charge. Usually we do a high power test to get a minimum range and a low power test to get a maximum range, but we recently decided to stick with only the high power test on trikes going forward, since sitting on one for 50 to 100 miles at 10 miles per hour is a bit much. We also tested the Granite in PAS3 for its high power test instead of PAS5 due to the speed concerns I mentioned in the last section, and so that we could better compare its results to those of other trikes we tested. With those considerations, we got a result of 40.7 miles in PAS3, which again tops out at about 16 miles per hour. Most riders sticking to that safer speed should bank on a minimum range close to our results, but we think it's reasonable for those who do choose to ride using a lower assist level and a slower speed to be able to reach Mokwheel's advertised range of between 45 and 55 miles. Do keep in mind, however, that carrying cargo will reduce its range. Thanks to its high-capacity battery, the Granite gave us what is the longest high-power range test we've seen from a trike, at least at the time of filming, so if you're seeking one that can really go the distance, Mokwheel has you covered. I also want to point out that the Granite includes a 3-amp fast charger that can recharge the battery in about 5 hours, so even when you burn through the battery charge, you don't have to wait that long before you can head back out on the road or path. Next, let's see what happened when we tested the Granite's throttle and pedal assist system in our hill test. Justin is our tester for this one, and he rode the trike up a paved path called Hellhole Trail, which is 1/3 of a mile long with an average grade of 12%. I'll pass you over to him for a few minutes, you can see the tests, and then I'll see you back here again shortly.
Okay, we're on Hellhole with the Mokwheel Granite trike doing the throttle test now. So we're gonna see how this does. Kind of right out of the gate, we're at about 10 miles an hour, 9 miles an hour as we approach this first steep section, 9.5, 9.4, 8.2, about 8. Kind of feels like it's hovering right about the, high 7s, low 8s through here, about 7.5. Of course, when I always say where it's going to be, it drops a little bit lower or higher. So 7.3. See if that's the final bottom tick. Yeah, so kind of bottom ticked right about 7.3 there. The motor, I will say, just the sound, I'll let you listen to it here, but it's very quiet. Quieter than I'd expect, so I'll let you listen through this section. So yeah, you can see the noise in the motor picks up as you get a little bit faster, but it's very quiet. And as far as like the frequency, it's also lower frequency, which I generally prefer. So this will absolutely make it up Hellhole. I think especially on a trike, it's not necessarily about how fast it makes it up, because you're not going to try to bomb up a hill or even down a hill on these things. You just want to make sure that it can get up if you just want to throttle or pedal. So yeah, did great. We'll go check the tape and see what the time is. Okay, take 2 with the Mokwheel Granite trike, now doing the pedal test. And especially with trikes, when I pedal, I am letting the motor do the work. Again, a lot of people that do buy a trike do it for mobility reasons, and I'm not expecting to be able to kind of really stand up and crank down on the pedals. So I'm taking this, again, pretty easy, letting the motor do the work, and so far it's feeling pretty good. Right about 9 miles an hour, 9.4, 9.1, kind of bottom right about 9.9 miles an hour through that steep section. Motor continues to feel nice and quiet. I'll let you listen here and through this next steep section. So as you can hear, that motor is just very nice and quiet. I'd say it's a little louder with me pedaling than throttle. I'm going a little bit faster, which makes sense. Bottoming out right about 9 miles per hour on that last steep section. And again, I am not pedaling, I'm not pushing down much, I'm just more turning the cranks and just really, you know, feels smooth, feels good, and you won't have any problem climbing a steep hill on this thing. So we'll go check the take and see how it did.
As you could see, the Granite had no trouble making it up the hill in either test. Now, we'll take a look at the trike's results and see how it compared to similar models we've tested, but I do want to reiterate Justin's point that making it up the hill and completing the test is really the point with the trike. We just want to make sure it has the power needed to handle hills effectively, and if it can handle hellhole, it's not likely to have much trouble in most places. In the throttle test, Justin finished in 1 minute and 47 seconds at 10.1 miles per hour on average. The pedal test in PAS 5 was faster with a time of 1 minute and 34 seconds at 11.4 miles per hour. Compared to similar trikes we've tested, the Granite did a great job. It finished the throttle test 19 seconds faster than the category average of 2 minutes and 8 seconds, and it finished the pedal test 22 seconds faster than average of 1 minute and 56 seconds. Both results were a little unexpected, considering that this trike weighs about 20 pounds more than average, and also that its motor's peak of 860 watts and 65 newton meters of torque aren't really outside the norm. It's possible that Justin got some extra momentum with the Granite's faster than average speed, but it's also possible that Mokwheel's programming allows the motor to reach its peak output faster and also sustain it longer. I personally tested the Granite at our secondary test location called Pilot Hill, and I did some similar tests both with and without a 57-pound sandbag in the rear cargo basket. First, I tested the trike with no cargo, both in PAS 4 and 5, to make sure that their power levels were indeed different, since they had the same speeds on flat ground back in our speed test section that we talked about earlier. I finished the PAS 4 test in 1 minute and 30 seconds and the PAS 5 test in 1 minute and 23 seconds, so there were 7 seconds of difference in the numbers and also a noticeable change in the trike's feel. I tested the trike with the sandbag in PAS 5 and saw a difference of only about 8 seconds in my throttle test and 6 seconds in the pedal test, so this trike was clearly plenty capable of moving the extra weight. Bottom line, the Granite definitely has what it takes to climb hills with and without added cargo, so we give it a solid 2 thumbs up in this section. In this ride quality section, we'll talk about a variety of things that impact how the Mokwheel Granite feels to ride. So things like sizing and fit, suspension, motor engagement, the user interface, and a few others. Let's go back out to the bike paths and cover some of the basics, and then we can dive in a little bit deeper once we get back here. All right, so let's talk about ride quality here on the Mokwheel Granite. This electric trike has a recommended height range of 5 foot up to 6'2". Now I'm 5'11", so I'll go ahead and kind of share what I'm feeling right now as far as the riding position goes. Overall, it's very upright. So my torso has a slight forward lean just to make contact with the handlebars here. Those are at their highest position. There's about 4.5 inches of adjustment there with the telescoping stem. And then there's about 6 inches of adjustment with the saddle height in the seat post. And I've got that maxed out as well. I don't have quite full leg extension, but you know, on an electric trike with a cadence sensor, I don't really think that's a problem. You know, the ride is very relaxed and easy as it is. And then as far as the reach goes, I think it's kind of right about perfect. You know, my arms are out in front of me here, but I don't feel cramped. I don't feel too stretched out. So I think Mokwheel did a really nice job there. Let's see, as far as ride comfort goes, we have a suspension fork up front to help smooth things out. That has 80 millimeters of travel. And then you get a little bit of extra cushion from the tires as well. Those are 20 by 3, so they have the width to give you a little bit of extra squish there. And then we have the added benefit of a suspension seat post, which is not standard. As I mentioned, that is an optional thing that I've enjoyed, so I would recommend adding that if you're considering it. And then we have the 500 watt hub motor with the cadence sensor that I mentioned there. Slow down for that curve. But I'll go ahead and show you kind of the motor engagement on that. Let me bump back up to PAS 5. So now we're coasting. I'm just gonna move the pedals and show you how quickly that engages. So we'll do that now. Okay, so that was, I'd say between a quarter and a half turn of the cranks. So pretty good, pretty responsive. It has seemed to fluctuate a little bit, anywhere from, near immediate to about a half turn of the cranks, just kind of depending. But overall, I think it does a good job there. And yeah, that should cover the basics. Let's go ahead and bounce back to the studio so we can wrap things up. So in that clip, I mentioned that I didn't mind not having full leg extension, and the main reason for that is that this trike uses a cadence sensor to engage its motor, so it doesn't really require much pedal effort, and overall the ride feels very easy and relaxed. Pedaling was a little tough because of the Granite saddle, which I mentioned back in the speed test. The shape of the saddle and the placement of the backrest meant that if I sat all the way back, I wasn't really able to move my legs. So in order to pedal effectively, I had to sit kind of up on the front edge of the saddle. If you plan to rely mostly on throttle, I don't think you'll mind, but for those who do like to pedal, we encourage Mokwheel to find a saddle that allows the backrest to slide forward and back so that it can be adjusted for proper support. I have one other point of critique to cover, and that's that I felt quite a bit of flex coming from the front end of the Granite, particularly when cornering, so its handling wasn't nearly as crisp as I'd have liked. We'd prefer the front end to be stiffened up a bit more so that steering feels a little bit more predictable and solid. Otherwise, I liked the Granite's color display, and I was happy that its settings menu allows for all the customization options I mentioned earlier. Let's go ahead and take a look at the display so we can wrap up the review. All right, so I wanted to go ahead and walk you guys through the Granite's display menu here. Starting off with the main display, you of course have a central speedometer. There's a grayed out ring around it, which is a power meter for the motor that shows how much power the motor's kicking out when you're riding, so it's not gonna show anything now. But the bars around that are actually the battery charge readout, and those deplete at the same rate. You also have your trip computer, your trip time, and your current pedal assist setting. Now there are two settings menus, the first of which you can enter by holding both the up and down arrows. And then we have a couple of sort of basic things here. So you have three settings for the display's brightness. You can switch between metric and imperial units. You have a startup mode function, which is what dictates the type of throttle setting. So free mode allows the throttle to move the trike from a complete stop, while safe mode requires you to be pedaling a little bit and in motion before the throttle will engage. And we will bounce back to that settings menu here. So reset trip, that allows you to zero out the main display there. You can change your language, and then there's just some back-end stuff. So the power button is kind of your enter button, and the light button at the bottom is your back button. So if we go back to the main display, the second settings menu is can be entered by holding the up and down arrows as well as the light button. So here we have, first off, where you can control the speed limit of the trike, which affects both throttle and the pedal assist system. So you can increase this above 20 miles per hour, but the motor will stop at 20 regardless, and then you can reduce it below that, and that will take effect. So going on to power assisted gear, this is where you can choose between either 3 or 5 pedal assist settings. We just stuck with 5 for our testing, which is the standard. You can adjust the voltage level either between 36 or 48 volts, but I don't know that I'd recommend doing that, or really messing with the wheel diameter or tacho magnets functions here, unless you know what you're doing there. The riding mode function, it allows you to basically choose whether the trike has throttle, pedal assist, or both. So right now we have both. That again is the standard setting, but you can choose to only have the throttle work or only have the pedal assist system work. And we'll get back to that again. And then we're looking at the intensity setting. So this is kind of the important one that I mentioned, which is the trike's acceleration. So it ships in 3, and I might recommend bumping that down to 1 just to have it a little bit more gradual there. And then you can do a full factory reset if you want to, but that really covers just about everything. My first impressions of the Granite were really solid, both because of many of its specs, including its big battery, its motor placement, and its differential axle, but also because I think Mokwheel did a nice job with the visual elements. Looks are subjective, but I think this one looks a little cooler than your average tricycle, and it comes in a couple of nice color options as well. More importantly, I have to say that I was pretty impressed with the Granite's performance in our test sections. We learned that it has a generally well-programmed pedal assist system, it has really solid range thanks to its larger than average battery, it has great stopping power thanks to its hydraulic brake system, and it can tackle hills with the best of them thanks to its capable but relatively quiet motor. All of that goes to show that Mokwheel is definitely on the right track with the Granite, even though we identified a few points of critique. I'm happy that riders can reduce the trike's maximum speed and slow down its acceleration by changing a few settings, but I'd encourage Mokwheel to place stricter limitations on its speed limit right out of the box. And we'd also like for the brand to improve the trike's handling and make it a bit easier for those who prefer to pedal and take advantage of that 7-speed drivetrain. Otherwise, this might be an option to consider if you're looking for a trike that can ride far, handle some steep hills, and carry some extra cargo weight effectively. If you'd like to take a closer look at the Granite, please check out the links in the video description. One goes to our written review at electricbikereport.com, and the other will take you over to Mokwheel's website if or when you're ready to make a purchase. We appreciate your support when using that link, and I also want to invite you to subscribe if you haven't already. Please also consider giving this video a like and leave us any thoughts or questions you have down in the comments section below. But thanks for taking a ride with me. Again, I'm John with Electric Bike Report, and this is the Mokwheel Granite.